Hey guys, Z here, or rather, Harmonic Brave Ike here. In your barracks, we just got a free Harmonic Ike from the Hero Rises event a bit ago. He successfully, somehow, managed to win the voting gauntlet, and now you may be wondering about what you should do with your copy. And so am I. I'm sure there's plenty of conflicting feelings about Ike winning. Some may be positive. If they are, I haven't seen them around, but regardless of how people may feel, it doesn't change the outcome in the end. So instead of focusing on what it could have been, I think we should try and make the most out of this free copy and look at the bright side of it all. And ignore whoever could have won in his place. Ike, the latest, Axe infantry unit? With a PRF. Yep, that's him. Normally, a unit like Ike would have been completely worthless by this point just by proxy of power creep, and by a unit like him, I mean a unit that's over 2 months old in this meta, despite being another infantry tank that just so happens to tank a bit more than the last tank, he's still holding up pretty well for the most part. Ignoring the amount of counters we got to him in the past few months, 2 of which are on the spring banner currently. Even so, he's perfectly fine as a tank at the moment. If you need someone to just sit there and eat hits, he can just do that. Or if you need someone to initiate onto a foe, and then sit there and eat hits after, he could also do that. That's really just how he is as a unit. He's a wall with mobility and a Gale Force button. There's not really a whole lot to say about his playstyle, to be honest. It's good enough to where he could defeat a lot of things in the game right now. He's not impervious though, since there's many ways of dealing with him, as I've already talked about. One of those solutions being in a Sacred Seal, you know, Hardy Bearing, we love that one, haha. But it could still be annoying to fight him at times, especially with the right team. As a tank, he's gonna want, tank support, yeah, shocker. Units that give true damage reduction, maybe some stats, mostly the first thing. There's not really a shortage of units and skills that give that type of stuff out. You gotta bolster his survivability as much as you can, because guess what? He's a tank, you want him to tank. Although you could try and make his player phase stuff a bit more player phasey, I guess. Lin and the new Ninian can give him range 2 style, which can let him hit 1 space further away. Would you rather have 4 range or 5 range? Even special jump support is good in cases where Scowl shows up because he relies on getting a special off for a lot of damage. Although he does get a special jump on his first follow-up attack, so it may not even be necessary. But that's all the standard stuff any unit released in the past 5 months can do. What you need is the top tier stuff, aka the Fae OCs. New Year Heimdallr also exists, and while she's one of the most annoying units in the game currently, that's it, she's just really annoying to fight. Foresight Snare is good, some might even say very good. Shutting down a foe's action is strong, who could have known. If you're lucky, it'll disable the foe that could send Harmonic Ike back to the Buck 1 days. Although the thing I like about New Year Heimdallr over regular Heimdallr is the Scowl support, which will definitely come into play. Shutting down specials in general is really strong, and assuming the foe can't charge it back up quickly enough, the Ike might live in the end. Might. It depends on how he's feeling that day, to be honest. Alphador can kind of be a Heimdallr substitute for Ashe this season, assuming the foe has a Heimdallr on their defense team. You could just copy it and then put it on Ike, and look at that. Heimdallr. And with more Scowl support to boot. You see, Heimdallr can only give you 1 Scowl, but do you know how many Alphador can give? 3 Scowl. It really is such a huge difference in the end. There's also New Year Valley, and the fact that I've only listed the book 9 OCs really says a lot, doesn't it? It's definitely not helped by the fact that they all came out like 3 months ago, but still, kinda hard to argue against them though, considering what they all do. And with Valley specifically, she gives out Drive Miracle, which is really strong on top of everything else she does. I don't remember everything she does. The miracle was the main thing though, but that is pretty good support anyway. That's a nice way of at least keeping Ike from immediately blowing up in the face of Hardy Bearing or any unit released in the past 3 months. I think she also has one of those uplift skills that give out true damage reduction and healing, which also helps with his longevity a good bit. Honestly, between Valley and anything that gives out more true damage reduction or even Reflex is pretty good for him overall. Reflex especially, since the foe will always attack Ike first, allowing for his special to hit way harder in the end. That into a potent follow hit should be enough firepower if the former wasn't already enough, and if it isn't, you got Frozen support that can mess around with follow-up stuff, and units like Harmonic Hilda for Brave support. There's plenty of ways to bolster his combat capabilities. Is it perfect though? No, but will it keep him from aging out as a unit any faster? No. Still, unlike any other tank in the game, Ike is special in that he will always serve some kind of purpose, and that, my friends, can never be affected by power creep. The purpose of being a Scorebot, since he's a harmonic unit, he'll always have a home in resonant battles at least, and with this free copy of Ike, this means you could score even higher during his seasons. But so can everyone else, which effectively renders the benefit moot in the end. Isn't score inflation so awesome? That said, if there's anything you should take away from Harmonic Brave Ike, it should be this. They are going to counter him even harder now that he's a free unit. Spend as much time as you can with him before you start considering an arcane weapon for him. But if you want nothing to do with Ike as a unit, then there's always his fodder. Whoa, look at that thing, look at that thing. Patience. That's the shiny new B-slot everyone really likes right now. Maybe likes a bit too much though. Don't get me wrong, it is a pretty good skill. It's got the standard true damage and true damage reduction stuff that everything gets nowadays based on 20% of your defense stat. Although it being based on defense probably makes it less suited for some of the more min-maxed options since the scaling won't be nearly as high as other damage reduction B slots. But that's not the main thing. If that's all it did, then I'd imagine people would be a lot more upset with Ike winning. Really, the cool thing about it is the force advantage and the free potent follow effect it has built in. Or I guess free in quotation marks since you need 30 visible speed to get it, and that excludes visible bonuses. But also getting 30 visible speed on a lot of units isn't the most difficult thing to do in the world. That said, the units with no speed probably shouldn't be forcing themselves to hit that benchmark anyway. I don't think they need the potent follow that badly. If you're gonna feed this skill to any unit, it should be the ones that can make use of damage reflection, you know, your Johanna Lances and your Johanna Lances, that's the only inheritable variant. Ranged units can't use this, so no Johanna Dagger, unfortunately. And technically every other weapon type that doesn't have it baked into their PRF, like Edward and Echidna or some other unit, I don't remember. Actually, Edward's not that bad of a shout since his defense is also pretty high too. What makes Reflex and Johanna super good with Patience is that it guarantees your first hit will have damage reflection in it, whether you're initiating combat or enemy phasing. Even for the ultra slow units that aren't even making the potent follow check, just forcing the foe to go first so you could try for one huge attack is pretty strong. It wouldn't matter either way if you are enemy phasing, but it is pretty noteworthy for mixed phase combat, and it's not like you couldn't make any infantry into a mixed phase unit. Ike's entire kit just lets you do that. Without it, you're risking the chance of not being able to get it off whatsoever or losing to a retaliation of sorts. Granted, that can happen regardless of patience because you need to survive no matter what, but that's the combo you want to strive for anyway, and for anyone not named Edward or Johanna Saber Manual, you're going to have to run Legendary Black Knight, Ilian Mia, Halloween Peony, or T Ingrid for reflex support. These are some of the only units that could give out reflex consistently, but you do have plenty of options to work with at least. Unless you just don't own any of those units, in which case, you don't have plenty of options at least. But it's still one of the easiest ways of getting potent, so, you know, it's gonna do something for you at least, even without the reflex stuff. Just don't go forcing it on anything with a pulse. Don't do that, please. No. The rest of Ike's kit isn't too shabby either, what with Brutal Tempest and Warrior's Blow. Brutal Tempest is still a Canto distance C slot that can be used on any melee infantry and flyer, which is pretty cool. And Warrior's Blow has full tempo, some decent stat swings, and 7 to 15 true damage reduction, which is a lot for one skill. And the best part is, his entire kit isn't too hard to inherit for the most part. Warrior's Blow requires Armored or Warding Blow as pre-fodder, and Patience just requires Quick Riposte 3. It's mostly just Tempest pre-fodder that you need, and that's not too difficult to get at this point. And if you don't have that, then you could just skip out on either skill. Canto distance isn't really the hardest thing to get these days since they keep putting it into A slots, but that's the same slot that Warrior's Blow is in, so your best bet would be to use the Sigurd Ring or something. I guess it just depends on what you value more in the end. Although it's not like melee infantry are exactly starved of A slots at the moment. They have Bonus Amp, Swift Spectre, other skills maybe. At least their C-slot options fare a lot better with Faith, Instruct, Fatal Smoke, Times Pulse, another Times Pulse skill, another Times Pulse skill, another Times Pulse skill, another Times Pulse. So yeah, maybe you could just skip Brutal Tempest if it came down to it, but everyone's case is different, so I don't know, up to you. I'm just glad it's one of the few modern units we have with fodder that's easy to pass around. It definitely softens the blow of getting an extra copy. And the announcement of him being in Divine Code 7 undoes that. But hey, I guess that means we have 2 copies of Patience to work with. Or another Resonance Battles merge that won't amount to much in the end. That's what we love to see. But yeah, that sure is Harmonic Brave Ike that everyone in the game now owns a copy of. Is he the absolute worst freebie ever? Not exactly. I'm sure plenty of people would have preferred any other winner in the top 8, but at least there's things you could do with Ike. He's still a fine enough combat unit and tank, and the right support will just clear out most of the content in the game. Even in Aether Raids and Summoner Duels, the fodder is also pretty decent for what it is. Patience is a great skill that synergizes well with reflex builds, and Brutal Tempest is a pretty splashable C-slot for many units. You can definitely find a use for him somewhere. And if you can't, then yeah, he is actually the worst freebie ever. Have fun with your copy of Ike. Or don't, you do you, man. Anywho, let me know what you plan to do with your free copy of Harmonic Brave Ike. And also subscribe because it will guarantee you more free units in the future. Guaranteed, not guaranteed. And until next time, I'll see you in the next Binding Worlds event where 90% of the units are made up of Harmonic Ike's kit.
Let's rumble.